Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest narration of the web series, The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 146. Memory transcription subject. Chief Hunter Isip, Arxa Rebellion Command. Date standardized human time, March 5th, 2137. When Vicynth referred to Arxa today as no longer people, I decided the visitation was a lost cause. Secretary General Zhao's directive to liberate Maloo would be my focus. We'd have to stumble into morality the old-fashioned way, through trial and error. The humans could guide us down the roads of sophistication and ethics, with the principled backbone that held Earth together in the wake of the raid. As much as I loved Felra, allowing her to dictate my beliefs and behaviors was neither fitting nor desirable. The first phase to bring down the Kolshian Empire was loosening their hold on the Dosa world, and thereby sending my friend home. I decided to leave Felra with a human garrison at their fledgling colony in Mazig space, called Liberty's Bastion. It was unsafe for her to come with us to this vicious battle, when there was a non-zero chance of us being killed in action. A fine Arxa commander led by example, providing their mettle and relishing the opportunity for a contest of strength. Even if we had been relying on orders from far off, I thought it wise to keep my mind tactically sharp. I couldn't afford to worry about whether Felra wanted a Lesky's beef jerky, while plasma beams were sizzling around us. The Terran guards would be more disciplined without the cute rodent around too. I had faith that they could conduct themselves well under peril. I observed the trusted Arxa I'd called onto the bridge, filling in vital stations, and considered what this meant for my legitimacy. 40,000 ships, that's the number the humans gave me, for the original forces that seized Maloo. I gazed out the viewport at the fleet I commanded. The thick armor of Arxa warships merited respect, alongside the punishing twin plasma guns that could skewer an opposing vessel. The rotund belly of our vessels broke out the otherwise angular build. Missiles were stuffed into the underside, as we shared the affinity for toting explosives with the Terrans. A traditional Federation ship would have cowered at the sight of our firepower, but the secret fleet of the Kolshians had an answer for all of our inventions. Standing aboard a craft of the aforementioned make, I felt woefully exposed. Coordinating disruptions against Dominion targets was one thing. They weren't expecting resistance, and they didn't have any tools at their disposal that we couldn't predict. Waging a battle against a superior enemy, with the ragtag armada at my disposal, was daunting. Proper warships didn't comprise the entirety of my force, as we had to rely on anything with a drive that fell into our jaws. The Terrans had parted with some of their smaller or obsolete craft that they had no use for, which did little but pad our spaceworthy ranks. Stolen Arcs or transports, retrofitted with guns, were lacking in maneuverability, firepower, and armor. The classic, intimidating warships were the few the captains had been bribed into stealing. The other ship classes were designed with the intent of bringing soldiers to the ground to take a planet, not for exchanging blows with an advanced fleet of drones. Zhao had promised to support us, so I was hoping humanity had said something substantial to our aid. We needed any assistance we could get. Taking serious losses might as well be total defeat, with our limited numbers. The strategies I devised would also need to be good enough to outfox the Kolshians. Chief Hunter, there is an incoming transmission from the Yodel Technocracy. Shall I read it? Oleski Bonadenko asked. I glanced up from my holodisplay. Please do. The humans have requested that we aid you in retaking Maloo. We have been amassing an armada since the Battle of Earth, with aid from the Terran engineers, and feel that the vessels are ready for deployment. 2,000 nearly minted ships will warp in just behind your position. We'll advance in your signal and see how our weaponry fares in action. So, this is the first battle for these Yodel ships, crewed fully by Yodel, without human intercession. Yes, this is how Zoe interpreted me asking for assistance. The tail end of the message says that more help is on the way, sir. A growl rumbled in Kaisel's throat at the sensor station. We all know how well the Brave wage war. Our numbers are barely above a 5-digit range. If the humans expect us to push forward, uncertain we can create a decisive edge, we must rethink our strategy. Yes, I appreciate your input, Kaisel. I trust you to preside honorably over your station. Humans, do you have any ideas of what this other help might look like? I cannot feel confident in aiding forces' abilities when it's all militaries of former Federation members. Lisa Reynolds glanced up from her briefing report. I have been in touch with my UN contacts. As I understand it, the Dirty and Homogeny are not responding, even to sapient coalition parties that aren't us. It's possible that they're ignoring us, but given their involvement in the assassination plot, it's suspected that Kalqua is under siege. A show of force. A warning. Nykonos might have been in the league with Gisnell, but his death changes little. I would not be surprised if Dirtian incurred a full wrath of the Federation. Even with their so-called shield, they stand little chance against the Shadow Fleet. I agree, and I don't know what they are thinking. All I know is that they were livid about having their free thought brainwashed away. Humanity, despite our differences, we would likely bail the Dirtian out if they asked. With their hatred for us, they would sooner see their world burn than invite the predators into their territory. Why do you side with and help the very species that despise you? Kaisel demanded. I agree with the runt, my nostrils flared, as the yodels from the ships arrived on cue. Human empathy could be directed to undeserved places at times. If the Federation weren't a greater threat, and it were possible to secure Earth's obliteration, I hazard a guess that the Dirtian would do so without question. Oleg shrugged. We need more ships fighting for us and less ships fighting against us. Simple. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. The Dirtian have unusual motives, but humanity always holds out hope of a species warming to us. We didn't want to fight everyone like this, Lisa said. Look at all that's happened. The Dosa have been occupied for months for the crime of befriending us. We have to break the stalemate here and now. No matter what, we have the human forces that are deadlocked here in the system, holding the line as we speak. What we've got isn't even a third of the total size of their fleet, but it has to be enough to turn the tide. I suppose it does, Oleg, I sighed. Thank the Yodel for their aid and patch them into our comms. We'll see very soon if they're at all competent. Yes, sir. The Yodel vessels were visible on the viewport, and had a different aesthetic from any craft I'd seen before. There was some mild displeasure on the rebellion's channels over integrating with herbivore forces. The technocracy's commanders seemed capable of mobilizing craft into formation, though it was their combat readiness we all doubted. If the supposed reinforcements turned tail and fled when the gunfire commenced, I'd have some scathing remarks for Zhao once this was over. It was my hope that the humans knew what they were doing. If the Terrans hadn't proved themselves to my men at full, I suspect I'd hear more objections. After that demolition, saving our hides, the UN could put a Sisela in charge of an armada and receive only grumbles from our people. Humanity has earned our trust. Oleg told me that humanity was involved in designing these vessels, which meant that the Yodel warships could be more devious than they seemed at first glance. The strange shapes and features of the unknown classes suggested something was up with them. Conspiracy-loving Bondarenko adjusted his glasses, seeming to read a message on a comms station. Kaiser's posture stiffened by the senses, and I passed that our other assistants had arrived. My tail lashed with expectancy, waiting for one of those two to fill me in on the new development. 1,000 new contacts on screen. IDs as human drones, Kaisel announced. Oleg scratched his chin scruff. Can confirm. I received the communique with the info needed to relay commands to the drones. They're human, but we've entrusted them to your overarching directives. That's not as many as I'd hope Earth would send, but I suppose you have little left to give, I mused. Very well, place them on the front lines and forward our planned course. The human drones deciphered the gist of my plan and maneuvered their way to our leading edge. I could see that the Kolshian occupiers had detected our arrival, though they couldn't afford to break off from their current engagements. a lapse in a deadlock line would allow for the Terran drones in system, already pressing, to make headway. A worrisome issue crossed my mind as I watched opposing beams traverse wide swaths of space, with the only sizable man contingents being from my rebellion and the Yurtle, which foot soldiers would clear Milu of enemy troops. If we liberate the system, I hope the humans will supply ground forces. Oxor landing will be perceived as a raid, and I wouldn't expect herbivore soldiers like the Yurtle to be able to drive out the trained military. My focus was on executing the battle plan I'd devised. When my skeptical commanders relayed an openly disdainful explanation to the Yurtle, the herbivores acted as if they understood. It had been conveyed in terms suited for a toddler, since that was about where the Federation's military competency stacked up. Despite the disadvantages we faced, I had to remember that this was for Falra. My best friend's people were subjugated, and while she never complained, I knew that had to weigh on her mind. The Oxor Rebellion's commanders followed my orders without question, with the obsequiousness and reverence owed to a chief hunter. It was simpler to mingle with my people without Falra admiring my image, but the cruel acts I'd committed in the past hadn't escaped my underlings' memory. After witnessing my interactions, they'd seen defective behavior that didn't align with that history. I had to prove that I could be a respected commander without cruelty. It was just not about retaining their loyalty, but also being able to interact with other Oxor as equals. Viseth had reminded me that the true shamefulness stemmed from not acting empathetic enough. We're keeping our strategies as simple as can be. Approach the skirmish line from a wide angle and split the Kolshian's attention, I ordered. With any luck, it'll disorder their formation and give the Terran forces already present a chance to break through for the kill. Kaiser was busy highlighting each Yurtle ship on the sensors. If these prey-crewed vessels can't commit to a simple flanking pass, they're dead weight. I know. I'm not counting on the Yurtle to do much more than draw fire off of us, which is fine by me. Onward! In strict formation, the fleet careened into the outskirts of the action and coasted in for bird's-eye view of the Kolshian forces. Thousands of automatons were warding off the primates, having kept the battle well outside Milu's sanctum. The hum of our engines in the floor was tame now, but we were ready to burn hard to swoop across the foe's exposed side. Our weapon station was locked and loaded as soon as we got within optical range of the enemy fleet. I strapped into the commander's chair in case the inertial dampers were pushed too far during combat. The enemy drones definitely spotted us, because the nearest elements pivoted towards us to prepare for an onslaught. An AI's omnidirectional view trumped even the most ranged periphery of herbivores. A few foes lunged forward towards the existing Terran line in an attempt to dissuade the friendly automatons from pushing ahead and capitalizing on our arrival. I was grateful that the vessel leading in our charge were a handful of reinforcement drones Zal coughed up. I preferred that they absorbed the worst of the hostile fire, rather than a ship with lives aboard. I didn't dislike the Yurtle, and despite mistrusting their competency, that was a guilty by association view. I respect how they try to act brave. That's half of actually having bravado, yes? Of all the parties at the summit that have heard my speech, only one ex-Fed was willing to work with me. With an enemy force engaged in a 90-degree angle to our approach vector, we pushed the thrusters full burn. Numerous Kolshian craft had reoriented their weapons to face us, anticipating the greater threat from our flanking force, raking their line. If the onboard programs were aware the lead commander was in Oxor, I suppose I'd been predictable. Our reputation indicated that I'd choose an aggressive course of action. Simple maneuvers amid a crowded battlefield were proven across eons. Attempting to outwit a machine with faster decision-making power was an exercise in futility. Unless you were a delusional Terran. Their spontaneity and wild ideas were nothing if not unpredictable. It was both their genius and their derangement. Lisa's eyes were focused on our human allies. Sir, I recommend we keep our movement vectors clear of any friendly fire, nanodrone swarms, or shield breakers. With your permission, I'll keep combat stations apprised of such deployments and affected radius. Good idea. 50 seconds to first volley. We are not to stumble into friendly munitions, but we will not shy away from an engagement, yes? I hissed. Oleg cracked his knuckles. We're back where Lisa and I first met you, Chief Hunter. Those military black budgets had to turn up something useful, huh? Let's get it done. Subordinate Orcs on the bridge maintained submissive postures, though I could see a zeal for bringing down the caution in many eyes. Nyconus had partnered with the oppressive betterment office to ensure that our kind would never seek peace. That was enough to spawn a growl from my own chest. With narrowed eyes and a surge of adrenaline, I soaked in every detail. The bulk of the Kolshian drones remained locked in their struggle with Terran opposites, and 13,000 rebel-controlled ships were barreling towards the enemy poorly defended flank. Could a shadow fleet of drones withstand the initial onslaught? Long enough for manned Kolshian reinforcements to reach them from Malu. Any commanders knew that there was nothing easy about overcoming 5 digits worth of ships. The drones under my oversight led the way, weaving through the enemy fire with mechanical precision. Our Marder glided behind them as the billowing explosions rocked the lines of both parties. My warship was insulated from the brunt of the fray, but we were vigilant for any munitions that slipped through the cracks. Salvos of missiles were being traded like claw swipes, deflecting and landing based on the receiving party's situational awareness. Debris littered the system from the months-long battle, and we were only adding to it. Disabled ships drifted helplessly along the vectors when maneuvering power was lost. Navigation and thwarting hazards I've located to avoid collisions, Kaisel barked. Lisa's head snapped towards him. I haven't seen any shield breakers coming from the UN line, but they're pushing forward to take advantage of distraction. Many Kolshians have shield outages, so I can assume that occurred well before our arrival. I drew a measured breath. Thank you. Adjust trajectory as needed, and await my orders to fire on any important foes. Our vessel wove around the wreckage of the eviscerated enemy craft, and our plasma guns sizzled in wait of Kaisel's next target offering. The rebel ships weren't as nimble as hostile drones, but our heavy hitters packed more firepower. Twin railguns from warships scorched the flesh of nearby foes, taking advantage of the shields that were downed in lieu of our arrival. The Terran Armada was surging forward all along the defensive line, rallied by the obvious devastation we'd sown. A pair of Kolshian drones collided, overwhelmed by the combined crossfire, and we were gift-wrapped an easy shot against another short-circuiting defender. I ensured that my outward stoic professionalism, despite my internal celebration, as our plasma tore a gash in the enemy's circuitry. The Orcs portion of the plan was going swimmingly, but I noticed worrying movement in the wings. Rather than playing a supporting role, the Yodel had separated from our flanks and were spreading out across the Kolshian lines. Why were they breaking formation? Those herbivores should have let the Predators' militaries handle this. We couldn't have the humans' long-awaited chance to break through ruined by bumbling incompetence. With the feeling that I was watching a disaster in motion, I diverted my focus to the Theocracy's ships going off on their own. The Kolshians were bound to teach the marsupials a lesson in humility. End of chapter. There is a new legend on the horizon. Blueberry Cat has taken the T6 Patreon spot. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say that. I would just like to thank our T5 members, Lord Azrical, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Dragzoon W.R.E, Blueberry Cat, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, and Leslie 517. Thank you very much.